I'm recording this under the assumption it won't be cleared for standard archival. If it is, then something has already gone wrong. My name is Staff Sergeant Daniel Reeves, United States Marine Corps, 1st Recon Battalion. What follows is a reconstruction of events that took place in Ramadi, Al-Anbar Province, Iraq, in late October 2006. The mission was logged as a routine reconnaissance patrol along the western floodplains of the Euphrates. It was anything but routine. This account has been revised 3 times. Certain sections were flagged, then removed, then partially reinstated. I've been advised to stick to observable facts. The problem is, what we observed doesn't fit within any known framework. So I'll tell it straight. Ramadi in 2006 was already a graveyard of structures and intentions. Whole blocks reduced to concrete skeletons. Windows hollow. Doors missing. The city breathed in dust and exhaled silence. Insurgency activity was high, but by that point, the rhythm of conflict had become predictable: IED routes, sniper corridors, safehouse clusters. We operated west of the main urban center, near the agricultural belts lining the Euphrates River. Date palms, irrigation trenches, low mud brick compounds. The kind of terrain insurgents used for movement and concealment. Intel brief said there'd been intermittent signals interference in the area, shortwave disruptions, GPS drift, comms distortion. Nothing alarming. Could have been environmental, could have been jamming. Our job was to verify. We were a 6-man recon element. Myself, team lead, Corporal Jennings, radio operator, Lance Corporal Diaz, point man, Corporal Halvorsen, designated marksman, Sergeant Kim, assistant team lead, Navy Corpsman Walker attached. We moved light, suppressed M4S NVGs, standard recon loadout. No vehicles. Inserted pre-dawn via MH60 about 8 clicks out, then proceeded on foot. Mission parameters were simple: observe, document, avoid engagement unless necessary. Routine. We reached our first observation point just after sunrise, an abandoned irrigation pump station overlooking a series of narrow canals. That's where things began to feel off. It wasn't anything obvious. No visual anomalies. No contact. Just absence. No birds. You don't notice birds until they're gone. In rural Iraq, even in war zones, you hear them: distant calls, movement in palms. That morning, nothing. Wind was minimal, but the air felt dense. Like it resisted movement. You'd take a breath and it didn't feel clean. There was a faint odor, burnt oil mixed with something organic. Not decay. Not exactly. Jennings reported minor comms distortion. Static spikes when transmitting. We checked frequencies, adjusted gain. It stabilized but didn't resolve completely. We logged it. Continued. Around 0930, Diaz halted the column. He'd found tracks along the canal bank. At first glance they looked like human footprints, barefoot. That alone wasn't unusual. Locals moved through these areas all the time. But these were wrong. The impressions were too deep for bare feet. As if whatever made them carried significant weight. The stride length was inconsistent. Sometimes normal, sometimes extended far beyond a natural gait. And they didn't follow the terrain. They cut across uneven ground, over debris, through shallow water, without any sign of adjustment. No slips. No drag. Just precise placement. Halvorsen measured one stride at nearly 2 meters. We spread out, checked for accompanying signs, drag marks, secondary tracks, anything. Nothing. Just a single set of footprints, leading toward a cluster of abandoned compounds about 400 meters west. I made the call to follow at a distance. Not pursuit, just observation. The compound was older than most in the area. Mud brick reinforced with stone, partially collapsed walls, central courtyard. No signs of recent habitation. We established a perimeter and observed for 20 minutes. No movement. No heat signatures. No sound. We entered in standard formation. Diaz and Kim clearing, myself and Jennings covering, Halvorsen overwatch from the exterior, Walker in reserve. Inside, the air temperature dropped noticeably. At least 10 degrees cooler than outside. The smell intensified. That same burnt organic scent, but stronger. In the courtyard we found markings. Not graffiti. Not tactical symbols. Carvings. Etched into the interior walls, low to the ground, repeated patterns forming a circular arrangement. The lines were crude but deliberate, interlocking shapes that didn't correspond to any script I recognized. Jennings started photographing. That's when his radio cut out completely. No static. No signal. Just dead. We switched to backup. Same result. I ordered a full equipment check. GPS units were drifting, coordinates shifting by several meters every few seconds. Compasses spinning slowly, not erratically but consistently off. We'd lost reliable orientation. We pulled back outside and re-established a temporary rally point. That's when Kim brought up something from the initial intel brief we'd dismissed. There had been reports from local informants, low priority, unverified, about a shadow man seen near the riverbanks. Described as tall, featureless, appearing at dusk or just before sunrise. Locals avoided certain compounds. Said they were claimed. At the time it read like superstition. The kind you hear in any conflict zone. But now we had physical evidence. Tracks, markings, environmental interference. We weren't dealing with insurgents. Not in any conventional sense. Around 1300, we decided to exfiltrate back to our extraction point. Comms were unreliable but we had a pre-arranged pickup window. Worst case we navigated manually. We retraced our route along the canal. The tracks were gone. Not faded. Gone. The ground where they'd been was undisturbed. No impressions. No indication anything had ever been there. Diaz swore under his breath. He'd been point the entire time. He knew exactly where they should have been. We continued moving. About 20 minutes later, Walker reported a temperature drop again. This time more abrupt. The air felt cold against exposed skin. Then the smell returned. Stronger than before. And closer. Halvorsen saw it first. He was rear security scanning our 6. He froze then called out quietly over hand signal, contact, rear, unknown. We turned. At the far end of the canal path, maybe 80 meters out, something stood between the palms. It was a figure. Humanoid in shape. Tall, easily over 2 meters. Completely black. Not dark clothing. Not shadow cast by light. Black as absence. No visible features. No texture. Just a silhouette that didn't interact with light the way it should. It stood motionless. Facing us. No weapon. No movement. Just watching. I raised my rifle, aimed center mass. Identify yourself. I called out in Arabic. No response. The figure tilted its head slightly. That movement was wrong. Too smooth. Too deliberate. Like a joint rotating without resistance. I gave a second command. Nothing. Rules of engagement didn't clearly apply. We had an unidentified entity, non-compliant, within operational area. I made the call. Warning shot. Diaz fired a single suppressed round into the ground 5 meters in front of it. The impact kicked up dust. The figure didn't react. Didn't flinch. Didn't even shift. Then it moved. Not walking. Not running. It was there, then closer. Distance closed without visible transition. Like frames missing from a recording. One moment 80 meters. Next moment 50. No sound. No footfalls. Just displacement. Halvorsen fired. 3 controlled shots center mass. Rounds impacted, or should have. There was no visible effect. No recoil. No reaction. The figure advanced again. Now 30 meters. I ordered full withdrawal. We began bounding back, maintaining spacing, weapons trained. Jennings attempted comms again. Still dead. The figure continued to close distance in those same unnatural intervals. Never rushing. Never hesitating. Just appearing closer. As we moved, the environment began to shift. Sound dropped out. Not silence, something deeper. Our own movements felt muted. Footsteps dulled. Gear clink suppressed. The air grew heavier. Breathing became laborious. Walker reported dizziness. Kim said his vision was narrowing. I felt it too, pressure behind the eyes like altitude sickness without the altitude. We reached a narrow choke point between 2 irrigation walls. The figure was now less than 15 meters behind us. Still no features. Still no sound. We couldn't keep withdrawing indefinitely. Terrain was constricting and we were losing cohesion. I made the call to hold. We formed a defensive line at the choke point. Weapons up. All 6 of us. Aimed directly at it. On my mark, I said. The figure stopped. For the first time, it halted its advance. It stood just beyond the threshold of the choke point. Head tilted again. Then it did something I can't fully explain. It leaned forward, slightly. And the air in front of it distorted. Not visually like heat shimmer, but spatially. Depth perception collapsed. Distance became unreliable. It looked both closer and farther at the same time. Walker dropped to one knee, clutching his head. Jennings started muttering coordinates that didn't match anything. I gave the order. Fire. We engaged. 6 rifles, controlled bursts. Rounds went through it. Not into, through. No impact. No resistance. But something changed. The figure flickered. For a fraction of a second it wasn't there. It stepped forward. And stopped. Right at the edge of the choke point. As if it had reached a boundary it couldn't cross. It remained there. Still. Watching. The pressure in the air began to ease. Sound returned gradually. Breathing normalized. We held position, weapons trained, for what felt like minutes but was probably seconds. Then the figure straightened, turned, and moved away. Not walking, just receding. Until it was gone. Then it was closer. Now within 10 meters. We didn't wait. We moved immediately toward extraction. Comms restored about 10 minutes later without explanation. GPS stabilized. Equipment returned to normal function. We reached the LZ on time. Extraction proceeded without incident. No contact reported. No visual anomalies from aircrew. From their perspective, it was a routine pickup. Back at base we filed our report. Initial reaction was predictable: equipment malfunction, environmental stress, possible exposure to unknown agents. We were separated, interviewed individually. Our accounts matched. Every detail. Tracks. Compound. Markings. The figure. Medical evaluation showed elevated stress markers but no toxins, no neurological damage. Photos from Jennings' camera? Corrupted. Every image from the compound unreadable. Data fragments only. Command classified the incident. Label: unexplained environmental anomaly with potential psychological factors. We were instructed not to discuss it outside official channels. Before we rotated out, I spoke to an interpreter we trusted. Asked him about local stories, specifically anything resembling what we encountered. He hesitated, then told me about something older than the current conflict. A presence tied to the Riverlands. Not a spirit in the conventional sense. Something territorial. He called it Al-Shahid al-Aswad. The Black Witness. Said it didn't attack unless boundaries were crossed. That it observed, measured, and remembered the compounds we entered. According to him, some areas were avoided not because of insurgents, but because they were considered claimed ground. Places where the boundary between the seen and unseen was thinner. I've reviewed the footage we do have. Satellite passes over the area show nothing unusual. No heat anomalies. No structural changes. Officially, the incident doesn't exist beyond a restricted file. Unofficially, every man in that unit knows what we saw. We didn't engage an enemy in the traditional sense. We crossed into something else's territory, and it chose not to let us go further. I've led missions in multiple theaters. I've encountered hostile forces, unpredictable environments, and situations that defy planning. This was different. There was intent behind it. Awareness. Control. Whatever that figure was, it didn't behave like a threat trying to eliminate us. It behaved like something enforcing a line. And making sure we understood it. We left. But I don't believe it forgot. Some boundaries aren't marked on any map, but they are always known to something.